Welcome to the Let's Grow podcast. Today, of course, we are talking about one of my favorite subjects to talk about and one of the most important subjects happening in human history right now, and that is universal basic income. So if you're listening or you're watching, you don't know anything about it, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to know exactly why it's good and how it can affect all of our lives, including yours and mine.
You taught me actually more about this, I think, than I've read, to be honest.
Yeah, universal basic income is one of the most amazing ideas, and it's made popular, recently by Andrew Yang, my boy Andrew Yang.
Yes.
Go Andrew Yang, future mayor of New York. But if you don't know what UBI is or you've heard a little bit about it, let me explain briefly, and then we'll get on to the conversation. But basically, universal basic income says, look, when you own a share of a company, like a stock, you get paid dividends, right? Every quarter the company pays you just for holding on. You're a shareholder of that company. Universal basic income takes that exact same capitalistic idea and says you are a citizen of the United States of America or whatever country you're from. You contribute to the overall economy, so you should get a share of that country's wealth every so often. So you're a shareholder of the country. You work to make that country better. Like, it doesn't matter how little or how much you work, you still work. And you should get something in return. So universal basic income says, look, why don't you just give everybody a certain amount of money per month, every single month, from when they turn 18 years old to the day they die. And then that person can live a better life. It's basic capitalism that doesn't start at zero. It's a foundation, a base that you can just not have to stress about. There's just the very basic bills that most people stress about in life. And that's UBI. That's in a nutshell.
Basically like necessity money to pay bills and everything. So people can invest in themselves with saving or buying things they need outside of like your bills, your basic bills.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we learned during this pandemic when all this stimulus money went out is that the amount of savings that people have went up drastically. Something like 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and they can't afford an emergency that's $400. Think about that. Your car breaks down, you're screwed. Your kid goes to the hospital, you're screwed. What are you going to do? There's no money, there's no savings. But with this, you have that money every single month coming in, regardless. And I mean, just seeing some of the stories that people have said, what they've done with the money, it really shows you that humans are kind when they don't need. So if I have enough resources to survive, I'm going to be nice to you. But if I don't have any resources, this is why like criminals typically come from lower income classes because they don't have, so they have to take.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's just like in the old days where you would go and hunt for things, and that meant you had to kill something, like you had to go out of your way. And think about it, if we didn't have food, like, and we really had to do that, we would probably all be doing stealing, killing, all that stuff. It's just like the purge where you're like going crazy to be able to survive.
Yeah, there's a very, like, we think we're very civil, but there's a thin veil of civility that we all have.
Yeah.
If right now all of our water got shut off, we would be searching for water.
Out. Yeah.
And we would do anything that it took to get water, and including like, look, if you got water and I don't, I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna take your water by any means necessary. It's this thin layer of civility that we have, and then when we see people acting out, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. It's like, no, it's just a lack of resources that they don't have, so they're gonna take it from someone who has it.
Yeah. That hierarchy of needs, it's a real thing.
It really is. But I mean, I love Andrew Yang. He put it back on the map, and now a majority of Republicans and Democrats support it, especially the under 30s. Because they're like, dude, this world is so messed up. Like, we need the next generation of ideas.
Yeah, so crazy. Are any countries doing that? Did you say? Do you know of any?
Yeah, Norway is they already have something very similar. Alaska has a dividend from oil. It's like an oil dividend that they've had for like 20 years, and Alaska has the least amount of income inequality out of all states. And what they do is you get between $1,000 and $2,000 per year every citizen or every resident of Alaska, and they make, because they have a lot of oil up there, so they take part of the oil revenue and they just give it to all the residents every year. Amazing idea. So Andrew Yang goes, oh, and that was a Republican governor who passed that.
Yeah.
And that's a Republican state, and they love it. So he's like, well, okay, that just makes sense for everybody. It doesn't matter what party you agree with. Why don't we just do that for everybody?
Right. Well, there's so many issues. I mean, especially living in Los Angeles, like, there's so many homeless people that, like, at least if they could at least have money to pay rent, they would be able to go out and get a job instead of, like, fighting to survive because they have no money.
Yeah, and what? So, I don't know if you know about this, but this is huge. So the way you pass things in politics, if you don't know how to pass things in politics, I'm going to tell you this secret right now. You have to start with the elderly and the kids, because no one's going to vote against helping old people and kids.
Right.
That's just what, Social Security, that helps elderly people. Before Social Security, something like 1/3 of all elderly people died because they didn't have enough food. It's insane.
Yeah. It's like if
right?
they can't work, if you remove work away, how do you have money?
Exactly, yeah. And old people didn't have, so now you have Social Security, right? You get money every month for the rest of your life until you die. But elderly already have this. Now, there was something called the child tax credit, where you basically get a refund for every kid.
Yeah.
But now the Biden administration is like, why don't we just give them money every month for parents who have kids? Like, kids are a big expense. So if you just give them like $300, $350, that would make their lives a lot better every single month for every kid that you have.
Yeah.
And they're passing it now. So
Wow.
they're turning the child tax credit into a monthly cash stipend that you get. If you're a parent and you have kids, you're going to get $350 a month
Per kid?
per kid.
Maybe we'll get a increase in more kids.
You definitely will, because right now we need more people to have. Remember, we were talking about
Yes.
that. We need more people.
Yeah.
And if they're 6 years or below, I think it's 300 or something like that. But It's basically 350, which is amazing, because how many parents have to work a second and third job to
be able to afford their kids, feeding their babies.
Yeah. So that's how you pass them in politics. You pass it with the old people; they already have it. Pass it with the kids, the babies, and whatever, the children. Next, and the last is regular adults.
Yeah.
So it's coming.
Yeah. So maybe slowly but surely we'll be able to do it.
What's crazy is a lot of people that this is a good idea. It'll take like 15, 20 years to pass, but the pandemic sped all this up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just so crazy how things have made people have to figure some things out that, like, maybe they didn't have to do because of just, the scarcity of money and jobs. I mean, I know so many people who still are like, I'm interviewing still trying to find work. It just, like, makes you, I don't know. Personally, one thing I've learned from the pandemic is just how to figure things out. Like, it's more important, if that makes sense. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I hustle, I have like 5 jobs anyways, but I'm like, okay, what's the smartest way to go around this? And what's, not the dumbest way?
It's true. Yeah. There's a lot of people that figured things out during this pandemic that otherwise would just kept going on the same road without looking at the big picture. You get sucked into the day to day, and it's hard to take a step back and say, hold on, what am I going towards my goals, or am I just going through life to make a paycheck? It's a drastic difference. And
that's one thing that I think that people either learned during this pandemic or they didn't. It's like you kind of look at like a lot of people and like you're friends with, and you're like, did they actually take advantage of this time? Because me moving here the week that everything closed, I was like, all right, you don't have a choice. Like, you're launching your fitness website, you're still doing your meals, but how can you do meal prep with everything kind of closed and you don't know anyone? And so I forced myself to like network in different ways and meet people in different ways that maybe I wouldn't have done when I moved here. Yeah, it's really showed, and I know people who didn't progress at all, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel bad for them. I'm like, that's a whole year of your life, and we all need money to live, so.
Yeah. So with and this is the beautiful thing about UBI, it actually touches perfectly on your point, is like when all of a sudden your revenue streams dwindled or like, got cut in half or whatever it is for people, businesses close, what are you going to do? You're going to, if you have savings, you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
But those savings are soon going to be gone.
Right.
And then what are you going to do? So UBI basically says like most of your expenses are for stuff like rent, is for sure the biggest.
Yeah, rent
spend.
is, oh gosh, especially in LA.
Cell phones, food, car. Those are the main things people need to survive. And what UBI says is like, look, if you got an extra $1,000 a month, every month, that's not enough to not work. That's not enough to pay all your rent. It's not enough to just slack off. But it's just enough so that you don't have to stress about those basic necessities are covered. Mm-hmm. So you have more money to do things like invest, start a new business venture, spend more time with your kids, stay home instead of having to work in that second job. It'll give women the ability who are, like we were talking about, women who are in abusive relationships, but they're stuck to their partner because of finances. They'd be able to step away and break away and leave them finally. Like, it would take the boot off people's necks so they can breathe a little bit and say, oh my gosh, like, okay, let me not fight with my wife because we don't need money this month. Like, that's one of the biggest domestic violence issues, is fighting about money and turns violent. And if we didn't have that, if people had just a little more money, which money is created out of thin air, it doesn't exist. So why are we stressing ourselves?
Paper.
It's retarded.
It's so, and it's just, it is so crazy because it really, the world's like, it shouldn't revolve. I don't think that my purpose here is to chase money.
Absolutely.
If you think about it, like, why are you here? Would you say, I want to be rich? Is that what your purpose is? If so, like, that's your thing. But my thing is helping people. I want to change people's lives. So I don't think I should have to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I hope I make so much money, you know? So that's why I do agree. I think that the income would be so beneficial to just everyone, and especially people, like you said, with the relationships. And I don't know, I just, like, I feel bad for homeless people. I know sometimes it's because of drugs or maybe really bad life decisions, but I'm just a lover and I want everyone to be able to take care of themselves. And money is just like, it's the root of all evil, in my opinion, because it drives people one way and can make them crazy.
Yeah, it happens, especially here in Hollywood. You know, you see that a lot. One question I've started to ask people, and if you're listening to this, ask yourself this question. This is a I think the best question that I've started asking people is, I go, if you didn't have to worry about making money every month, like if you had all the money you needed for your, like, and I don't preface it by saying anything about UBI, it's just a question.
Yeah.
If you had all the money you needed every month, didn't have to stress about money, what would you do with your time?
No, I mean, that's a really good question.
And that's how, and it, honestly, the people stop and they're just like, and it's like they've never even thought about that before.
We're raised to go to school so that we can make money. Isn't that crazy? Like, it's not because we want to better educate ourselves. Like, I mean, maybe some people feel that way, but at the all root of that, it's because you need to make money to live. Which, like, especially being, like, not even to bring religion into it, but like I said, like the purpose thing, like, I don't think that God put me on this earth to work like a 9-to-5 and not feel satisfied and be so stressed out all the time. So it's a good question.
And yeah, and you know, what I like about people's responses is that all the responses I've gotten are the same. And it all goes like this. First, they're like, well, I would go to work. And I'm like, yeah, but what would you work in? Like, what would you do if you didn't have to do the job just because it paid the bills? And then they're like, I'd probably help people. And everyone I've asked has said the same thing. They would help people do something, like mentally, physically, like nutrition, anything. Just help people, help them learn art, help them, like. And I'm like, that to me says so much, because it says that humans, like we were saying, if you don't need resources, you're nice to people.
Yeah.
Like, think about people in Texas. You know, the crazy Republicans, oh, they're crazy Trump. Those are nice people. Like, in their community, they're super nice. Trust me, I've rode my bike across the country. Like, I've met these people in these small little towns. Mm-hmm. Everyone's so nice. You need something, people would stop and give me water. Hey, like, you look a little hot. Here's some water. Like, yeah. When I got a flat tire, people would come up, say, hey, you need any help? Super nice. In the city here, nobody would do that.
Yeah.
Because everyone's worried about their own stuff, making more money, making more resources. But in the countryside, people are much more like, community driven and stuff like that. But when you try to infringe on that, and this is kind of going off the topic, that's when they get mad. They're like, screw that, I got my guns. You're coming to my area, trying to mess up my life. I'm good. Like, leave me alone. Anyway, so but back to UBI, yeah, it would just help so many people. A lot of people were saying I would help if I had $1,000 a month extra. I would help like my grandparents, or I would help my kids or my parents or whatever. So it's just a giving kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not even talking about
Yeah.
the economics. We haven't talked about the economics behind it and how it would spur new business growth, new investments, everything.
Yeah, because I think that, like you just said, I think people would want to actually help more people too. Like if they were like, I'm good, I make a ton of money, like donating $1,000 to organizations to help with cancer or XYZ, it would just make people even more grateful, honestly, because they'd be like, wow, I have this extra money for whatever investments, helping people, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so new business creation is at I don't know if it's at all-time lows, but it's extremely low right now.
Wow.
And the reason is, and I've said this before, is if you work so hard for your money, starting a business is a huge chance you're taking. If it fails, you just spent all this time and money that you spent so long accumulating, and now you're going to start at zero again. And most businesses do fail. That's just, that's what happens. But if you had $1,000 every month, you could take more chances, because you know that if whatever you're starting fails, it's okay. You have $1,000 at next month, so you can try it again. Mm-hmm. So that would give people like kind of like a broader mind to
like
do
a spark
things.
To like feel like they need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my meal prep business, that would be absolutely amazing, because then I can invest in more advertising, make myself more money for my business, and help me grow and be able to reach more people. So I totally agree. I think, especially right now, everyone's so scared about losing their businesses. It's just like, the $1,500 stimulus check, and everyone was like so grateful for it. That's like a perfect example of like how people reacted. I mean, some people were stupid and went and bought Louis Vuitton bags, but some people were like, oh my gosh, I actually have rent money. Like, I'm sure two stimulus checks? There
was one for $600, one for $1,400, and then one for, I believe the first one was like $1,000. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of how people would react was the stimulus checks, because I know so many of my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, I got the stimulus check."
And some of the people who are against that, basically, UBI would be that every single month for every single person. Some people say, oh, like people would slack off and not work. Well, the majority of that money went back into the economy. People invested in the stock market like crazy because they had extra money. Like savings went up. I think. Don't quote me on this, but I think the savings rate is something like insane now compared to what it was before, because just people have more money, they're saving it. Yeah. And I mean, there's just a whole range of benefits from it, and not even from a monetary standpoint or like economic, just from stress and people's well-being and health. Yeah. There's a direct correlation between how much money you have and how healthy you are. The less money you have, the crappier food you have to buy. You can't get the organic $4 avocados or whatever if you don't have any money. You're getting the cheap stuff. You're getting the processed meat. You're getting you're buying the cheap stuff, not the 100% fruit juice. You're getting the sugar with fruit juice taste. Yes. So if people have more money, they can eat healthier. You can spend more time with your kids, and there's a direct correlation between how much time and how many words you read to your kid and how well they do later on in life. It's literally a direct correlation. So if you're a mother and you could stay home with your kid more and not have to stress or go to work or whatever, you're not tired after work, your kid's going to be a better producing human being for the economy. And that's how you get a better country.
That's so interesting.
Not by working more.
Yeah. I know. Isn't it funny how we're taught we have to work really hard and more, when sometimes it's more quick work and it's just as effective.
And there's this pride people take, and you hear it all the time. It's weird. It's in work and in sleep. Oh, I only slept 2 hours last night, as if it's a badge of honor. Like, that's awful. How is that cool? Like, am I supposed to give you props? So bad. Or people say, oh, I work 15 hours a day, and like I'm supposed to commend you on that. Like, why is that good? Like, why is that good that you're working? Like, why should I say, oh my gosh, that's really cool? No. It's the opposite. Hey, I barely worked today. That's amazing. Yeah. What'd you do for your time? Oh, I researched science. I just thought about things. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're put on this earth to enjoy our lives and grow and be good people, not work ourselves to death.
Yeah, which is what, again, one of the other things this pandemic did is introduce stay-at-home work. We don't have to commute. Commuting is so stressful. Yeah.
So glad I don't have to go through the LA traffic like that with my meals.
Yeah, I think one of the figures I read was that we spend a third of our waking lives in traffic or commuting.
That's so sad.
1/3.
That's a lot of time.
Because think about it, how much time does people spend getting to work? I mean,
like the normal commute is maybe 30 minutes or more.
There and back, right?
Yeah.
I know. I used to spend like an hour each way when I worked in mortgage in Orange County and lived in Hollywood.
Wow.
At least an hour. So that's 2 hours a day. It's just
Yeah.
commuting and traffic stressed.
Yeah.
And
I don't like that.
being in traffic it's not fun.
No.
Like you're just waiting in line.
Yeah, you're just sitting there, maybe singing songs.
Eating bad when you're in the car. Just
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks, Fabian, for teaching us all about that, including myself. Because I knew a little bit about Andrew Yang and that concept, but I didn't know a lot. So.
Yeah. OG Yang Gang since 2019.
Yang
2018.
Gang.
Yang Gang, baby. Make America think harder. Math. Love it. I'll talk about UBI anytime, day or night. Just let me know and I'm ready.
Yes. All right, guys. Till next time.